Hello, world. Hi, Asaf.
Hello, everyone.
Okay, so well, this is not where we knew something was cooking. We didn't know what. We are coming to you live. This is the quarantine. Things that we knew we needed to do some rebranding on the show. We understood that we're entering what the Kabbalists call the last generation, the days of the Messiah, so to speak. This time where, meaning that the time that we're drawn out of our physical, our corporeal lives while we're alive, and we enter into a spiritual reality together while we're in our life, while we're each in our different bodies, and all of that. So I know that we have so many incredible friends here from around the world. So let's just fill you in if you have not been following what's going on in the United States. There was a terrible tragedy this week. A police officer killed a man on the street, but in historical fashion in the United States, it was a white officer who killed a black man. Definitely excessive force. Definitely, yeah, there you go. So this police officer spent 8 minutes with his knee on the neck of this black man, and the man died after that. And first of all, it's inhumane. But second of all, it brought out this problem that still exists. And here in the wisdom of Kabbalah and amongst our friends, we are always talking about being one man with one heart. We're always talking about that everybody's one. And all of a sudden now, nature is forcing us to look at there's actually differences between us. Until now, we just said with everybody, we're all the same. We're all one. That's spiritually, but physically, there's definitely differences between us. And now we have to look at what that is. Now there's many layers to this, because it's one thing if we're just going to manage and learn and discuss the differences between the races. Why are there four races? And Asaf, I think that would be good to discuss today, what all that means in the wisdom of Kabbalah, and how that descends from from the simple upper light down into our world. But then there's other things that are going on as well. So it's one thing to have people protesting, right? But what's happening now is there's a dozen cities around the United States that are on fire. So there's either domestic terrorists. Okay, so some people are saying that it's, coordinated Nazi efforts. Other people, yeah, other people are saying that it's left wing, Antifa, anti-fascist. Other people are saying that it's the Chinese. So basically, what's happening now is in a coordinated way. A tractor trailer will stop, and then behind that something will be set on fire and then move on, or U-Haul, or vehicles coming into all the people that were arrested, for example, in a city. 70-80% of them are from out of state, so people are in a coordinated way moving around. So the something that started as a crime, which was clear between one white man and one black man, and how they're whatever was going on there. Now this turned into this huge situation, which seems uh, really chaotic, and nobody's sure who these actors are. And if the same thing that we suffered, the same thing that what we saw with the virus, right? It's like, is Bill Gates trying to sell his vaccine to us? Are these ones trying to control this? Are these this? And we talked about all these different conspiracies and everything, and then behind all of the conspiracies in the news and everything like that, should we be locked down? Is someone keeping us locked down for political reasons? Are they keeping us? Do they want us to go back to work for financial reasons and not for health reasons? We couldn't make sense. If you remember the last few weeks, we're saying, wow, there's so many conflicting and confusing opinions about everything. And the same thing here, right? It's not simply, oh, we have a virus. Now, what's our solution to it? It became all of these things about the economy and relations between us. And the same thing here. Okay, is it a simple racist thing? This criminal, this guy, this cop, with this hatred in him, white cop killed a black man, or is there some, all of these theories and things about what's going on. So
Yeah.
um, is a lot going on. And again, we are living in two worlds as Kabbalists. We have the spiritual world where everyone we are one man, we one heart, we share one soul. And then we have this level here where we live, where we must engage, and we need to understand and feel what's happening here. We're going to bring in some very close friends in a few minutes who are Black Americans. It's so, Asaf, it is so weird making calls and preparing for the show to think of myself, who are my Black Kabbalist friends? It was so surreal because in the wisdom of Kabbalah, we go to our world gathering and there's, you know, 5,000, 6,000 people from 150 countries and speaking 30 languages,
All
and you're hugging
colors,
this one.
all
You're
colors, and
hugging this one
all
from Turkey. You're
flavors.
crying
Yeah.
into this sweaty guy from Africa. It's like you don't even. We've been working for so many years to just spend all of our time in this place where we're all equal, and then all of a sudden we now have to look at
Yeah.
this, and the nature, the creator is forcing us to now say, okay, this is the next discernment you have to make. I'm out of words, man. I'm hoping you can
First
support
of
me
all,
here.
look, I think, first of all, it's very clear that this is an extremely loaded situation, and explosive and loaded kind of situation that right now everyone is in. I think it's important for us here and for our viewers to just kind of like, you know, to what's the role of Kabbalah in all of this, and what is the role of what we're doing here specifically. I think it's important to just kind of put this into the right context. So as you well said in the beginning, that there's so many speculations and ideas and thoughts about what is actually happening right now, because it's not just the event itself, it's what's happening now in what, like 30 cities right now in the US, where there's riots and craziness happening on the streets. So, and is it coordinated, is it not coordinated, all that. I think what we're trying to do here is, even though this is a very, again, loaded and difficult and challenging situation, if we can suspend for a few moments, what we feel maybe more this way or that way, and try to kind of not take a side, not fall into all kinds of knee-jerk reactions, and try to really look at the root causes, at the deeply rooted spiritual causes for everything that's happening right now. That is what we want to do right now, I think, in this, say, 50 minutes that we have together. And I think for that, we want to bring our friends, John and Karen, as well to discuss with us. But maybe, bro, maybe we actually start from the top. Maybe we start from a quote from Kabbalist Bar Sulam that somewhat touches on this. What do you say?
Let's do it.
Okay, so look, when we're talking about the spiritual perspective on
Maybe
things,
let's if we can,
yeah,
let's just set it up, but let's bring them in. And before, okay, I was thinking we could bring them in and then read it together.
okay,
Okay, read. Go ahead. I didn't see you have it here already. Go ahead.
we can read it again when they're here as well. It's a short quote.
Okay.
So, you know, Kabbalist Yehuda Ashlag Bar Sulam tells us it is certain and unequivocal that the purpose of creation lies on the shoulder of the whole of the human race, black or white or yellow, without any essential difference. And he writes this pretty much 90 years ago in his article Mutual Guarantee, which is an article that is completely about how human beings have to build these bonds of unconditional love between them, and how this is mandatory to do on part of nature's plan. This is not something that we are saying that is nice to do or we should do, or poetically it's an interesting idea. Rather, we're talking about laws of nature. And when you look at things from this perspective, there's a reason for our differences. And there's a reason, and the fact that we're different and the fact that there's hatred between us is also something that we need to learn how to cope with, how to deal with. And first of all, we need to understand why we're put together here on this earth, different from each other, developing these feelings towards each other, and at some points doing horrible things to each other. And how can we get out of that situation by learning more about nature's plan? Uh,
We're
okay,
gonna
you want to
we're
bring
gonna
our friends? Yeah.
yeah, we're gonna bring John and Karen Larkins in. They are Kabbalists. They've been studying with our teacher for many years. They are dear friends. We've been together for years in our gatherings. We see each other every single day in the morning in our lessons with our teacher together. They also happen to be Black Americans with an interesting, which I never thought as a Kabbalist we would have to use that as a label, but we're going to bring them on when as they're coming in. I see that YTNT Yangle is, I haven't seen, I think I'm pronouncing that right. I haven't seen you before, but is joining us from Southeast Asia in the Far East Pacific region. So if you can, everybody, as John and Karen are joining the show here, let us know where you're from. Okay. Please tell us your name and where you're from so that we can be in this action. Hi, Biruk. I see Biruk is joining from Ethiopia. Really great to see you, brother. Hey, Debbie in Texas. So please let us know where you're from. We'll do a global check. We are in this together. We are spiritually uniting all of humanity here. Let's be in this action together. So, Asaf, can you bring John and Karen in?
I believe I can. Let's give it a second. Um, yeah, John, Karen, can you open your camera? You with us? All right. Hello, you guys.
Hey, John. Hi, Karen. Thank you. Thank you for being with us. Can we hear you?
Thanks for having us. Appreciate it.
Okay. We hear you. We see you. All right, we are together. Good. And I'm looking, I have on my phone, I have Facebook open, Asaf, if you have YouTube open, it looks, we are all here. Okay, good. John and Karen, so we are now not only in the middle of a global pandemic, we are also in the middle of some race riots here in America. Um, Asaf just messaged me that I look stressed out. I feel stressed. Asaf, I am. I feel so tense about what's going on. Friends, let's just pass it to you. Do you have something, how are you viewing this? First and foremost, we're friends. We've been on this path together for a long time, and this wasn't even something that we needed to deal with. But now the creator nature is bringing this to the front of the stage. How do you see that? How do you feel what's happening here?
When I first saw this story, and what I saw was a video of black man being murdered by a white officer, something like that. And I was like, no way, you know. And then sometimes you go and see the video, and then there's this aftermath of all kinds of just breakage that kind of happens from that point. And in our teaching, you're taught to see everything kind of like as a result of something else. And of course it doesn't matter. It could be let's say someone is really has no money and they can't really wrap their heads around why I don't have any money. That's my biggest thing. Or maybe I need to lose weight. I have a problem with food, and I can't lose weight. Or you could be a minority and there could be issues in the system with racism. And a lot of people are struggling right now with that, that we see around us. But we've been taught to kind of look at things differently. Not only taught, but we're made to feel things differently than what the average person sees. And so from that aspect, you kind of come to understand and feel that there's a deeper meaning to all of these things, not just what's close to my heart personally or my personal set of circumstances, but for all the different crises that you see happening in the world, and not giving importance to any particular one, but seeing them all as a result of something else.
Yeah, and to add to that, John first told me about it, and I didn't want to see it. I didn't feel a need to see it. But then I watched it. And when I watched it, I realized that I didn't have that emotion attached to watching it that I would have in the past prior to studying the wisdom of Kabbalah. And I know that I have family and friends who don't feel that way. So you have to find that fine line of how to talk to them. And that's what we're doing right now. We're talking to Black Americans who are trying to understand and make sense of something that seemingly makes no sense. And from a Kabbalistic, from our teachings, we understand that there's another picture that we have to help them see, that evil inclination that we know we have. Everybody doesn't know that. And so we have to try to find a way to help them understand. As you said, it's a picture. And as you said, Seth, nature, the creator, has now thrown something else into the picture. And it is a little awkward because I don't feel the emotional attachment to that picture because I know that the creator is making us now come in and look at it from a new perspective.
Yeah, and at the same time, we still have to. We live in this world, as you said earlier, Seth. People are going through all kinds of trouble, so we have to empathize. We have to feel connected to that. I think the issue is the value system has to start to change. What's become valued is all the entertainment and all these other things. Not to say we're casting an evil eye on entertainment, but the value of the human being has to rise. And the wisdom of Kabbalah actually helps us to be able to do that, really seeing into the essence of the person, not just the exterior. Oh, I don't like Asaf because he has on a checkered shirt, and now I want to go and do something to him. No, what is I do like your shirt, by the way. What is the essence of Asaf? That's what I'm trying to connect with. And when we all start to move past those barriers, perceived barriers, then the value of the human being goes up as a whole.
There was a Kabbalah Congress in Africa, the first one that happened this year, and we saw all kind of friends that we knew were there, but because of internet issues or whatever, we didn't have the opportunity. Can you hear me? Okay, I don't see my mic. Okay, good.
Yeah.
We didn't know them. We don't normally see them on the screens during our lesson, but we heard all kind of very interesting explanations. Asaf, there's a question from Biruk in Ethiopia, and maybe you can touch on this before we come back into our hearts, but just lay some wisdom out here about Biruk from Ethiopia, saying all things in the corporeal world have a spiritual root. The question is, what is the root associated with being black and white,
Yeah. Yeah.
or red or yellow?
Yeah. Well, there's definitely a root. That's first of all something to understand. We are, we're not created equal. We're not created similar. We're created different. That sounds a little intimidating maybe, but look, nature has is a very intricate and integrated and wonderful harmonious system. And that system is made possible, that harmony is made possible only because opposites in nature, differences in nature complement each other and they come together. So, in fact, the four skin colors that you see across human beings, they are the result of four different phases in which that collective entity called humanity was created. In Kabbalah, we talk about it. It's called the four phases of direct light. We're not going to get into that. But there's a steep spiritual root that divides us. Why? Why not create just one
So
thing?
hold on. So
Yeah.
spiritually, we are one on the soul level. everyone is one. You're talking about then once we get into the physical creation,
We,
everybody is different and not equal.
we're one, but to discover the oneness, to experience the sublimity and this elevated state of being one, we have to first feel our differences. And that's why we find ourselves living in this world as 8 billion separated individual beings, every one different from the other. And within that, we're also divided to many groups, and we also have different preferences and different political affiliations and different skin color. And we think we're different. We think we are different pieces of a different thing, but we're actually different pieces of a single thing. That's where the whole thing lies. Now, why do we see all this racism and police brutality and all of that horrible things that are happening right now, and the results of that? We've never ever actually dealt with how to complement each other. This is a spiritual practice that we're going to have to learn as human beings, and that's what reality is gradually pushing us to. I won't expand on this more now, but just to
So we have Trinell is bringing up a point here. We can't ignore. I don't know where the comment went, but it's something like we can't ignore people's pain. So it's like you tell
yeah
I have a son, for example, and I tell him, this is the rule. But if he's suffering or something, even if you still are dealing with this person you love, and it's not enough to just tell from the mind. So um, the mic is open, John and Karen. We're just here around the table together.
Okay.
Okay, yes. I just wanted to speak on something that Asaf said and also Trinell. And this is so true. We can't ignore people's pain because even though I didn't react the way that a lot of African Americans, I'm sure Black people are reacting, I felt it. It's just that because I understood what the creator is trying to show me or show us, I had to put it in its correct compartment. But to help the public understand, that is why it is so important, this wisdom of Kabbalah, because we start to understand why we're different, but at the same time, this equality that you were speaking of. When I went to my first convention, when you said, you were, under the sweaty underarms of African friends, those experiences for me were surreal. And because I'm African American and I was surrounded by a bunch of people from all different races, and I was like maybe 1% in that room. And I had to overcome that. And it's just amazing what this wisdom can help you achieve. That didn't happen overnight. I was born in the 60s. I know racial inequality. I watched my family go through it. I went through it myself. I had someone throw urine on me as I stood in the cold in a bus stop. So to come from that to the place that I'm at now, I have both sides. So I don't want to, give off the perception that I don't have that inner feeling and that inner understanding, but just how appreciative that the wisdom of Kabbalah and the friends that I have that are all different, the four race groups that you mentioned, how we can come together and overcome these things with knowledge.
Yeah, the education system has to change. It must, because what gets prioritized. Like, say, for example, you can go to school and you can learn that Black people were enslaved, 300 years ago, something like that. Those things, they kind of ripple in the process. It creates almost like I'm trying to say, an imbalance. Like, oh, at one time your people were inferior to me, and so we remain superior. These things are unspoken, but when we start to educate from a point of being in that, the root of where we all come from, then that becomes the unifying force between us. We start to see one another as a one united family, not as other. And then we start to be able to empathize with all kinds of plights, not just racism, but economy, homelessness, limited food supply. All these things can be addressed because we start to come from a place of care and concern from our root, not from what's rendered to us externally.
We're really dealing with these two levels, and it's wow, what a work as a Kabbalist, right? I mean, all of these different kind of paths that not kind of, all of these paths that I was on before I found the wisdom of Kabbalah, all these Eastern paths, was really a disregard kind of for the physical. You're meditating, you're being vegetarian, all of your physical desires are really lessened, and you're just focusing on spirituality. And then you enter into the wisdom of Kabbalah, and everything is about spirituality, but you also must be in this world, and you're very much in this world, and you're very much dealing with your desires, and you're very much dealing with your hatreds, and you're very much dealing with the differences. And we went through this coronavirus where the spirituality and the physicality are kind of coming together, that the hatred between us drives us apart. And now again, there's this other wave. And I'm sure in places like China and Russia, there's people, in other places being beaten, and in places in the Middle East where people are just treated horribly, at women, just of the same color, men beating the crap out of women on a regular basis. It's like normal. uh Here we're sorry, I lost my train of thought, but we have to deal now with, here for us, this specific thing that is being revealed, and something that is clear to Kabbalists, is we need to correct something in our internality. And even if we're only a small number, like, let's do a global check for a minute. We have viewers, friends joining us from Los Angeles, Turkey, Rhode Island, Brazil, Missouri, Nigeria, New York, New Jersey, South Carolina, Norway, Ethiopia, Canada, Southeast Asia, Virginia, Israel, Angola, Florida. So Middle East, almost all the continents. I don't see Australia here, but we have Africa, Europe, Asia, North America, South America. Each of these people represents, millions of people. When we, in our small group of people who are striving to find the unity between us despite all of our differences, and we're making an effort, like sweating through this process, this ripples through the whole system. Because like, Karen, I'm listening to you. Can you go to your mom or your neighbor who's feeling this in a visceral way and try and explain to them that we're all actually one? And they're going to say, yeah, but someone threw urine on me, or someone beat up my son, or my neighbor got shot last night because he was black. And it's not enough to explain it in the mind. And so we have these two levels as Kabbalists that we need to be in. We can't exit the physical world and just say, we're all one, it's all good, we're all one. Like, we are all one, and simultaneously we are in this separation, in these feelings of separation. Really, maybe it's just an illusion of separation, but we have to overcome it through our efforts together.
Well, to answer your question, with some of my family I can, and with some I can't. I have to gauge where they are. I have to let them guide that conversation, and then fill in depending on where I think they are in their readiness to hear that message. And it's not easy, but I do try. And I think John does too.
I was just going to add that, going back to what you were saying earlier, Seth, about interchange. There's this cartoon, I love it. Maybe people have seen it before. You have this, it looks like a politician. He's standing on a stand and he has his hand up. He says, "Who wants change?" And everybody raises their hand, everybody. And then the same politician asks the question, "Now, who wants to change?" And nobody has their hand up, no one. So that's a hint of where the work really is. It really is, defining those points where we need to make the change inside. It's very easy to hire politicians and pay them millions of dollars and say, hey, you do it. Because that way, when I do that, I take all responsibility off myself. And then when things don't go the way I want, I can always have somebody to point my finger at. And we've been in this system for donkey years, as they say, and it's not working. So what is the new change, or what is the new paradigm that we start to move into, as opposed to the one that we've been really drowning in?
I'm sitting in the emotion of it. So we came to the wisdom of Kabbalah, and we started learning about, first we wanted to have answers to why am I suffering, and, what's going on in all the spiritual worlds and all the angels and all the forces, and who am I, and all that. And then we start becoming very, very practical, that the entire wisdom rests on love the other the way you love yourself. And so, okay, what does that even mean? I thought I don't even like myself. I can come up with 1,000 things that I don't like about myself. What does it mean to love the other the way I love myself? And he says, no, what it means that you love yourself is when you wake up in the morning, you uh, you brush your teeth, you feed yourself, you take care of your kids. So as much as we think that we don't care about ourselves, or we have self sabotage ourselves, no, but we're always the one that we're looking out for. Uh, and then to love someone else in the same way. Um, I think that through these processes that we're going through, so first we had the coronavirus, right? And by the way, interesting. They told us that social distancing was one of the main things that we needed to do to flatten the curve, right? That was what we've been told. That's why we all stayed home. If I open up my news feed right now, in every major metropolitan city in the United States, I see people on top of each other, like no social distancing at all. It's like something happened. So, and we even talked about this in the last show. When we talk about education, that there's like what you hear in your head, in your mind, the knowledge, and then how emotions overcome that. So all of that experience that we just went through, like this experience was so visceral that it overrode everything. People don't care. Like they're so angry and so upset. It's so, the emotions overrode almost the entire experience that we've just been through for the last 11 weeks. And whoever owns, I'm not talking about some big box store, but whoever owns these stores on Main Street that are getting smashed, these people already were in terrible financial situation, right? It's like when emotion boils up in us, that's where the solution has to be for us. That's what we need to be able to do in the wisdom of Kabbalah, is bring to a person how our good future is is good. We feel safe, we feel loved, we feel connected. It's not enough to learn why in just in the mind. A person has to feel in the same way that they feel this anger now, and they feel this. Asaf, maybe we need to speak about what that means, these two opposite, the same way that we feel disconnected and feel this hatred, we need to feel that our good life can only come from our good connection. Karen and John, you're
Yeah.
involved in this project since the coronavirus started to constantly be spreading these good messages. You have a whole team that you're meeting with 3 times a week, and just pushing these good messages of connection out. Um, how do we get into what is your feeling about this? It has to be emotional. It can't be just in the mind. How do we spread this emotional message?
When we actually prepare for the meeting that you're talking about, we actually almost create a field between us in a way that we are highly connected. We Integration has to be there. It's a must. We've learned so much in our studies that If a friend or a person has a different aspect than we do, it's not like, this is a cause to fight or a cause to raise alarm or a knee jerk reaction, as I heard, I think Asaf said. We learn that the person really, anybody really is only speaking their truth because it all comes from a plethora of experiences. So when we actually engage in that connection between us, we're actually in that place where we kind of like integrate together and feel what the other person is saying, feel where they're actually coming from. And then by actually doing that, we start to come out of our own like limited perception and start to feel the perception or the feelings of the other person. And this is how integration occurs. And so when we create that space between us, we don't hold it. We're more than happy to like give it into that meeting because we want everyone to be in that place, not for our sake, not at all, but it's for the sake of actually feeling or coming into contact with something other than a limited perception that has caused all the things that we're looking at and seeing right now.
Yes, it's much like what we're doing right now. We're sitting around, we're sharing our different perspectives, and somewhere in the middle is that connection between us. And that's the connection that the creator gives us. And then from that connection, when we go into the project and other people come in and they listen to us, they're listening from that collective perspective. They're not listening to any one opinion. And that's the integration that we have already established, and then we just pass it on to the listeners.
So there's another parallel to the virus. We saw that during the virus, the quarantine, that the only option that most people saw was just to go back, right? It's either, okay, I'm in quarantine or I go back. People didn't have the vision because of, without that kind of education about what possible future there can be, people didn't see that there is some third alternative, right? It's like I'm locked down or open up America or like keep it closed. And here it's there. Let's talk about the third alternative because what there's like horrible event that the cop, the white cop killed this black guy. And then the reaction of the people, it's like, that's like the kind of like go back to the, I'm not saying that it's not, the anger is not justified. What I'm saying is the way that it expresses itself is that same thing of like go back to the old system where we were all enslaved to our to whatever, to our ideas, to our jobs, to our lifestyles, to our sickness, to all those things. There's not this third, like there has to be a third option. So this terrible thing happens, and what is the good future? How do we take all of those emotions that I just am so angry and I'm so frustrated, and the inhumanity and the inequality is just, I'm boiling, I'm exploding. But instead of just letting it express through me like shouting and smashing something, how do we take that energy and put all of that power into developing a good future together?
I think it becomes a matter of realizing that we have been doing the same things for as long as we can remember, and that as a race called humanity, that we're all tired of it. The knee jerk reactions that don't really get us anywhere. We're just more hate just is revealed. We come to a place where can we be innovative in the way that we think? Can we do that? Well, not by myself, I can't. But if I start to connect with a group of people and start to hear what they have to say other than my own limited opinion, because no matter how truthful my opinion sounds to me, because we're all operating from this place, I believe in my opinions. We all operate from that place. We think our opinions are true. But then we start to integrate with other people more and more, and that gives us the expansion that we're looking for to come out of the perceptions that we suffer from. So there has to be a willingness on our part to be innovative in the way that we think and start to move in a different direction, even though the ego or our former paradigms are going to try to keep us glued to the same thing. We have to be willing to reach beyond those.
Yeah, and speaking of ego, that's what the creator does. He has given each and every last one of us a button, and it can be pushed based on what it is that your opinion says or my opinion says is true. That's my perception of reality. If I feel that black people are always, we don't get the jobs, we don't get the education, whatever it is that we're lacking. For someone else, it could be anti-Semitism. For someone else, it could be stop killing the elephants and taking the ivory. It doesn't matter. It's a button, and it's all the ego is behind all of these different things that the creator uses to get our attention. All he wants to do is to get our attention. And because we're all in these different bodies and these different realities that we are perceiving based on our opinions, now he's telling us, look at it a different way. Look at
Karen,
what. Mm-hmm.
so, so most people, the perception of the world is the creator's good
Mm-hmm.
and people are just a bunch of idiots and keep screwing everything up. And you're bringing the wisdom of Kabbalah here, saying that the creator actually put these differences inside of us.
Yes.
You just changed my complete emotional state now. Can you expand on that, and what does that mean, and where are we going to go with this?
I believe it means that they can't all be true. So, like you were saying earlier, that good life, that good perception, that's what we're aiming for. And the only way we can do that is to have a willingness to put my perception aside and to enter someone else's perception, to listen, to integrate. And once we do that, then we can say, okay, this is the perception, an alternate perception, an alternate reality. And that's what the creator helps us to do, to try to put aside our own perceptions, our own opinions, enter the other person's perception, the other person's opinion. And even if you don't agree with it, it's not saying that I have to agree with it. It's just saying that I have to at least be able to listen to it and to integrate with it. And then maybe there's a middle opinion between the two.
We also have friends join us from Mexico, California, Spain, and the UK. Jurandi Brito da Silva is asking, isn't there a limit for understanding the other? Isn't it dangerous? Okay, so Jurandi, here's the thing. We can't, for example, if there's somebody who's raging over this, we're not going to that person now. We want the message to reach all of mankind, but what we're doing now is we're talking to the people who are able to overcome these separations. We're not leaving the separations. We are different. We are all different, and we're overcoming. There is a small group of people on earth, for whatever reason, who say, whatever differences we have, I'm willing, I see a good future if we can overcome our differences. I will remain white. You will remain black. We will remain purple. It doesn't matter. But on top of all that, we're going to come together as a family and reveal this integral force of nature, this power called the creator. So here's a question. Uh, Bright from the UK is saying, hello, Bright. And John and Karen will put this out there. Is it worth being sad and angry over what happened? Well, I don't know how you would not, but okay, is it worth being sad and angry over what happened? And how can we use these emotions correctly to get the message out that hatred is not the way forward?
I'll briefly answer that. Like I said, when John first brought me this story, I didn't want to see it because the sadness was there. And then when I went to go look at it, I knew I couldn't look at it from that emotional place because of everything that I've been taught and I know. And so when I saw it, all I saw was, the evil inclination that this man had towards this black man. And so then you go into your teaching. You go into the thought process of, why am I being shown this? And then you actually you pray. You pray to the creator to change this perception of reality. I know that it's not true. It's a false reality.
So can you tell me what you mean by that? What's a false reality?
That something evil is happening. It's the
How
creators.
can you say it's not real? How can you say it's not true that something evil is not happening?
Well, that's a good question. I believe what the sages say, that it's a false reality.
Can I add to you?
Sure.
Um, when a person's in school, and let's say, for example, they're in fifth grade, and they're given difficult tasks to pass the fifth grade, and they keep failing and failing and failing. The point is to give the work to the student is not to fail the student. The work is being given in order to advance the student. It's got to be at a higher level. So, what is the good that does good? Is this all that force that created all this has for us? Is that all? Because this is where we choose to keep residing. We choose to keep residing here. So unless you get the more difficult task of that's put in front of you, you'll never want to advance. We'll all be comfortable. Many of us live for the weekend. As long as the weekend gets here, I'm good. And then if no danger is in my little bubble, then I'm good. There's, like, in other words, maybe we think we're at the end of human development, but that force is showing us something else, that we're not at the end of human development. And we're being pushed by all these different things, not just racism, but all the different things that we see around us, being pushed because that force has something higher in mind for us than we even have for ourselves. But we choose to keep residing here, and we're receiving the blows that wants the human to keep evolving from this point of stagnation.
Raul is asking, what can African Americans do to unite without being perceived as a threat? And I know it's ridiculous that I'm asking you on behalf of all African Americans, but here we are on our show, so we're going to ask the question.
I think the point is for it doesn't matter what race it is. Every race has their culture and their viewpoint. It doesn't matter if it's black, or because you could talk to a black person, they have this issue, or a Puerto Rican person, they have this issue. Unless this integration occurs, then we all sit in our little corners making up stories about one another, and nothing ever happens. So it's not a black issue. Let's be clear on that. It's what's in human consciousness, and the only way to actually rise above it is when we start to integrate and expose what we're keeping hidden. That there somewhere deep inside of us, we don't want to connect, but we don't want to face that, and we have to face it.
Okay, hold on. You said it's not a black issue, but there's another part of Raul's question. He says, this has been going on for 400 years. What do you mean? Meaning, okay.
Okay, so if I can look at that and say it's very close to me because I'm a black person, and I'm not saying it's not. It is an issue. Definitely, it's an issue. But then you could go into another race that has all their issues that we don't even know about, because we're magnetized to our current state. So let's move past the magnet being magnetized, and let's start to move and say, okay, what are the problems that we're facing as a human race? It could be black issues we need to discuss. We need to discuss issues with Puerto Ricans, or we need to discuss issues that Jews have. We can't just make it a one. I don't know where I'm trying, but like just about one specific race, just like or one specific person. Getting tongue tied. Sorry.
I'll add something. I see. First of all, I see that Raul is asking very pragmatically. In my view, he's saying, "Will we be able to hold on to this? To keep this from happening in another 6 months, in another year? How? Why should we expect a change if it hasn't happened for, say, 400 years?" And I think that's a very relevant question, and I think he hits the point exactly, and that's exactly what we should be bringing up here. We're not going to be able to solve this. We're not going to be able to change anything. Everything exactly is going to happen like this again. What happened now simply shows us that we haven't done anything about racism or police brutality or violence in society or any kind of inequality, because we haven't dealt with the root of the problem. That's the whole point. The root of the problem is that human beings have to evolve We can't just try to be nice to each other. We can't try to create some sort of a politically correct mentality over our faces, try to use fake smiles towards each other. We can't try to, like, oh, do some equality in the workplace and that will create it. No, 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 no. There's a reason why we are so different and so resistant to connection with each other. There's a reason why we hate each other. Literally, there's hatred that's boiling in each and every person towards his fellow man, and especially when it comes to groups of people against other groups. This is there deliberately because only through rising above these differences without eliminating them, using them to complete each other into a single whole, into a single picture, we can come to a whole other level of evolution. And that's what human beings are required to do. What nature is doing right now is showing us that we're not going to be able to, smear it and cover it up and shove it under the carpet. We can't do that anymore. Human society is becoming increasingly interconnected, increasingly interdependent. Every situation like this now that's going to happen can immediately start a fire and blaze through not just cities but countries and continents. We are one and we have to live with each other. Now, how do we do that? We cannot do this if we don't get an upgrade. We literally have to upgrade our minds and our hearts. This is beyond our normal thinking about coexisting, which is just, you'll stay in your corner, I'll stay in my corner. We need to evolve into different creatures. We need to become interconnected beings. That requires spiritual transformation, nothing less than that. And that's what the wisdom of Kabbalah needs to give to humanity. That's why Bala Sulam says in that article we just read,
Can you bring the quote up again?
Sure. 1 second, actually. There you go. So he says, it is certain and unequivocal that the purpose of creation lies on the shoulders of the whole of the human race, black or white or yellow, without any essential difference. Meaning that there's a reason why we're black, white, or yellow, because only together we can put together this picture of the purpose of creation. There's a reason why there's males and females. There's a reason why all of creation is divided to plus and minus and many other different intricacies, because life is created between opposites. We, as human beings, we don't know how to create this kind of life in society. We are just keeping our distance from each other. Or even worse, and that I think is what's happening in America, saying this as an outsider perspective, people have been trained to not touch these differences, to put them aside, to put a fake smile on, to avoid anything of real integration. But it's not just there, it's everywhere. So the hatred that you have brewing between blacks and whites is not less or different than what it is between Israelis and Palestinians. We're dealing with the same problem, and that is the human ego at the core that doesn't let us build this new level of evolution. The only way to go forward is to correct the human ego. That's why violence is not going to help us. And as angry as people may be, it's just not gonna. That's not what's going to solve it. Spiritual transformation, and the way to start is education.
Patricia brings up something. Patricia says, I live in Cleveland, a very interracial city. We celebrate differences with a festival of foods, no rioting here because we're integrated. I think that, simple things like so Asaf is talking about upgrading to spirituality, but there's also, we live on two planes, right? So the other thing is to sit around the table and eat together, to speak together, to start. These are simple, real things where we start to feel that we are, well, I'm bringing this food from the West Indies or wherever, and I'm bringing this food from, some Russian borscht or something like that. And we see how different we are. You smell different, you look different, you dress different, or whatever. We are different, but we're sitting here together, and there's another quality. Now, it's two different realities. It's not this we're equal and we all just smush it, flatten the curve so that everybody, just shush. Stop acting like you're different. No, we're super different. Of course, there's a lot of things that are the same. In our DNA, we're like 99.999% the same. But when I look at you with my eyes, it's clear we are different. This education, somebody else said something about strengthening Black families, something about I don't know. So Brian, it's a point, but it's political, and we're not really dealing with political things. There's education, experience. These are the things that we do to begin to create these feelings that it's better to be connected. It's safer to be connected.
Yeah, I want to add something. I saw this post before. I think I saw it on Facebook, and then Karen had seen it as well. So there were two mothers in a store, and they had their children were on their back, their babies, a black child and a white child. The parents were completely unaware that the children were reaching for each other. They had no idea. So, in its purest, let's say, the innocence of through the innocence of children, there's no differences there. They just that natural desire to want to connect and be the social creatures that we are is just there. It's built into us. But what happens is over the time, we get taught different things. And so sometimes I'm not trying to be derogatory towards family, but what I am saying is that we get taught different things along the way that weren't ingrained in us from the time that we were born. And a lot of these things that are ingrained in us, they lead to this perception of this separation, which as if you go revert back to the mindset of a child, they don't feel that at all. So maybe this is the point that we need to start to return to as when we were children and we saw no barriers, no differences at all.
John and oh, sorry, Karen, are you going to speak?
Well, I just wanted to add quickly to what John said. Yes, I remember sharing that post with him, and also from the two mothers' perspectives. I think that if they would have seen that and noticed that this is what their children were doing, I think they would have, because as mothers of the world, we have this ability to understand this oneness and this connectedness that we all have. And they would not have separated those children, regardless of what, like John said, life has made them become. I think in that moment, the four of them would have just been feeling love.
Spiritual education. That's what we're here to do. To that's it. That's what we're here to do. We need to rebrand the show. Mariam Height said we need a new name for the show, the One Team or something. There's so many topics. Yes, we are leaving the first quarantine, and we're going to be going through all kinds of things. John and Karen, thank you so much uh, for helping us work through this. Unfortunately, there may be all kind of other things that are going to start to reveal itself. You said between the Israel and the Palestinians and between nations, we don't know. Nature is not going to let up anymore. That's it. We are now forced to become as different and as opposite as we are. Nature is, we're in the last round of the game. Like, we must unite. We must all come to love each other. That's our goal. That's where we're heading. Um, Thank you everybody for being so strong today in the chats here. I really felt how much everybody was invested in what's going on here and finding how we can rise above all of this. Saf, any closing words?
Yeah, I'm setting up this song that we haven't played in a while, and I think it's a good closure for this conversation because it's really about how everything that we're going through, everything that we are, all the differences that we see, all the hatred and the love, all the ups and downs, it's all one. And this is really what should inspire us. This is what inspires everyone who studies Kabbalah. This is why John and Karen are able to sit here and speak from such an elevated place about what is happening, because this is what we do as Kabbalists. We create these experiences of oneness across all differences. We see how all the different parts of the picture come together to create something more beautiful, greater than we are. And that's what nature wants us to reach. So let's play this song, beautiful song that I think really hits this point exactly. Thank you everyone for being with us. Thank you, John and Karen, again. Goodbye everyone. Let's watch this together.
Of the out beyond the self, seen in every glance, we know and we can feel. Here inside the friends, every heart in prayer, and it's all one. The light and the darkness, the sweetness, the sorrow, it's all one. The good and the bad, what's past and tomorrow, and it's all one. What's near and what's far, revealed and concealed in us, all is one. In the blink of an eye, it'll all disappear, and we'll turn from this world to a world without end, where each sin that we've sown will be shown in our favor. This is our life, this is our labor, till it's all one. All is one. And it's all one. The light and the darkness, the sweetness, the sorrow, it's all one. The good and the bad, what's past and tomorrow, and it's all